All right, before we get going, I'd like to apologize. Our streaming service will not be live this evening, but it'll be up on the server tomorrow morning, so for people to view. So, sorry for the technical difficulties. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the East Dubuque City Council meeting. It is Monday, August 4th. I ask that you please turn your cell phones off during the meeting, and please be quiet during discussions. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
(25-0801) call to order.
Bergmeyer.
Here.
Dagenhart.
Here.
Fleur.
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
Roby.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Mayor Digman.
Here.
Attorney Hess.
Here.
25-0802 staff reports. City manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have gotten the first estimates in for the emergency culvert repair, but we only had one in by Friday. And so we need to be able to take those and put them together and make a recommendation for the council. So we will have to do that at a next meeting. The Highway 35 water project is basically complete. We're waiting for approval from the state to hook people up to that. The emergency services building exterior should be done in the next day or so. They're going to be cleaning the brick. This is, in case nobody went by today, this is the arch that was uncovered from the original building. That would be the entrance on the side near the current fire station. And so that'll be built out. So that arch will be seen again for the first time in nearly a century, probably. So that's kind of exciting, but that's moving ahead. Oxford Street, the contractor has staged their equipment, and work should be beginning. In Indian Hills, all the legal work is done. The contractor could begin at any time, so it's just a matter of contractor scheduling on that one. That'd be my report.
All right, thank you. I just want to take a moment to remind everybody, Wingfest is this Saturday, August 9th. It's going to be on the third block, street closure from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., so all cars need to be removed from the street, off the street by 9 a.m. Alderperson report. Bergmeyer?
Nothing to report this week.
Thank you. Dagenhart?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the city crew. Tony was down in the flats cleaning them drains out that clogged up with the water. It really looks nice. Good job, Tony. Thank you. That's all I got, Mayor.
Thank you. Fleur?
Nothing.
Thank you. Meyer?
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Roby?
Digger, are we going to send some kind of letter to everybody on Main Street on that third block before Wingfest?
Yep, I
Make sure
should talk to
everybody
Pam
knows.
about it before the meeting.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Taylor?
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. City Attorney Hess?
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Thank you. Police Chief Kabasic? Thank you. Public Works Director Van Ostrand?
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Fire Chief Heim?
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Moving on, 25-0803. Speakers from the floor. We do have one this evening. Mike Meyer? Could you please turn the microphone on there, Mike?
Hello?
Yep.
All right. My name is Mike Meyer. I own the building at 68 Cincinnati. Also here to speak for my uncle, Ron Meyer, that owns the building at 56 Cincinnati. We're excited to hear the city is working on the drainage in the back behind our buildings. The first time I spoke about this was July 27th of 2011. And ironically, this past storm was July 27th of this year. Very ironic. These 800-year floods that happen once every 800 years, happens 3 times a year in East Dubuque. So we're happy that the city's going to do something about it. Super excited. Last year when we were sitting with Adam Johnson from Straka Johnson and Dennis Rundy from Carpenters, planning to build the building that we're building, that exact day we got a huge rainstorm. Water came rushing in the back door the other side, filled our basement in, but maybe a blessing in disguise because they saw what happens with the water and how it comes down that back parking lot. And so we were able to make some changes when we built our building. That's why you see the mountain of concrete. So we're super excited to hear the willingness of the city to go forward with this project, or at least it's on the agenda to go forward with it. We're super excited. And I know my Uncle Ronnie, if you look at the concrete in front of his garage on a weekly basis, that's backed up in water into his garage when it rains like that. I learned more from Tony Van Osteren this past year than I've ever known before. I thought that drain behind his house was hooked up to a storm sewer, and it's not. I forget what Tony calls that drain, but it just empties out into the ground underneath there. Here I thought maybe that was plugged, and I thought we could get it to go down farther, but it doesn't. So then the city had Jamie Williams come, try to make a swale into there, and it basically just created a lake behind us. Tony maybe thought that a road grader or something would have to be used to get that gravel to loosen up enough to try to create a swale to make the water drain. It just won't. So for years of pushing gravel when it snows to one end, and then they would bring, in the springtime, then they would bring in more gravel and put it where the gravel was or push. And anybody that's lived on a gravel road or knows how it goes, gravel then is at the end. And now at the end, like if you look at that picture, that's the back of the building. You can see the lake is there, and you can see I put that pop can there just to show, like, it's dry, like 25 feet to the way the water is supposed to be going is dry, and that water. Look on the garage, Ron, his garage. Look how high up that is on the garage, and these are just like normal rainfalls. Like there's 3 times in July we had a rainfall like this. We just put everybody compliments us on how Colby's looks on the outside. We've had to replace the mulch because the water comes and washes the mulch away all the way up on the side of our building. So like it's just like we're super excited you guys are going to make this effort to make this problem go away. So thanks for letting me speak.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Moving on, 25-0804, consent agenda.
Still moved.
Second. Roll call.
Bergmeyer.
Aye.
Dagenhart.
Aye.
Fleur.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Roby.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
New business, 25-0805, discussion and possible action to approve East Dubuque High School's annual homecoming parade in downtown East Dubuque on September 12th, 2025 at 3:30 p.m. with street closing for staging in the city of East Dubuque. Any questions or discussion?
No.
Okay.
Second.
Roll call?
Dagenhart.
Aye.
Fleur. Aye. Meyer.
Aye.
Roby.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Bergmeyer.
Aye.
(25-0806), discussion and possible action to approve a video game license for Mrs. Hyde's LLC, DBA Miss Hyde's in the city of East Dubuque.
So standard license for this, and I think they've done a nice job with the building. It looks really nice, with a little bit of a facelift over there. So we're excited to have a new business.
Any questions or discussion? If not, can we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Fleur. Meyer.
Aye.
Roby.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Bergmeyer.
Aye.
Stegenhardt.
Aye.
25-0807, discussion and possible action to approve facade improvement to invisible fence in the amount of $762.38 in the city of East Dubuque.
So this was a request that was made earlier, and they requested front and back signs. I said really the back was on an alley and wasn't appropriate for the facade. So this is just the half of the front sign, and we are. I think initially we thought, well, this didn't meet the full standards of the facade program, but then as we went ahead with slats and this, we're in a similar circumstance in that the buildings have been kept up very nicely. Both buildings look very good, and so there's no reason why they should be almost discriminated against for keeping their buildings looking nice. So I would ask for approval for this.
Any questions or discussion?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Roll call?
Meyer.
Aye.
Roby.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Bergmeyer.
Aye.
Stegenhardt.
Aye.
Fleur.
25-0808, discussion and possible action to approve a resolution to approve lease between City of East Dubuque and Chicago Central and Pacific Railroad Company in the City of East Dubuque.
So this has been taken a lot of work over months for Sue and her firm and myself. We've gone back and forth with the railroad numerous times, met with them out there and things. This all started with a lease for $700 a year in 1994, I believe it was, and went on leasing basically just an unimproved gravel parking lot up to this point. When we started looking at a parking lot back there, we started looking at whether or not we could either purchase or get a commitment on a lease from the railroad, and we put both forward. They determined that because there's a curve there, that it wasn't a piece of property that they could sell, even though they don't have a particular use for it at the present. So we went to spare everybody all the back and forth. The main issue that arose was that they had language in the lease contract, their proposals, that would allow them to take the property back basically at any time for any reason. And of course, if we were going to either use it or improve it, that was a non-starter for us. And we needed to have control of the property, either to lease it just as it is or to improve it, but particularly if we were going to improve it. So we managed through various drafts to eliminate the language that allowed them to take the property back without cause. The price of the lease is $2,500 per year. When I compare that to the purchase, so as you know, we always do a cost benefit as well as we can on everything we do, at least putting that forward. So the piece of property that we have that has been discussed as parking with about the same number of spots would be 166 in Sinawah. That sold last year a block away for $63,000. So I used that as a stand-in for the value of this lot because we don't have a particular value of the lot. This piece of property is larger than 166. So I used that as a stand-in and then compared it both in terms of if we purchased instead of leased, And then if we invested the money that would have been in a lease and use that as an as a way to look at what else you could do with your money. So anytime you look at a purchase versus a lease, it comes down to what's the time value of your money, what's that money worth over time. And so one way to look at that is to look at a mortgage cost. So what would it be if you paid for it with a mortgage? Another way to look at it would be if you had the cash, and what other alternative would you have with that cash if you weren't going to pay for the property? And I use this mainly as a way to show really what I think a good deal we got on the lease. Would we like to own it? We'd like to own it, but there's no comparison between what it would cost for us to purchase the property and what the lease actually goes for. So in the lease agreement, it's a 5-year lease, but we get an automatic extension of 5 years at our request. So it's really a 10-year agreement with the railroad. Given the fact that we've had control, of the property for 30 years, that should be a pretty indefinite addition. So as Mike pointed out, we're trying to solve a couple problems, and we'll talk about this later when we talk about the lot. But I'll go to the. This is a comparison. If you were to borrow the money to purchase the property, which is one way of looking at time value, at today's interest rate, the value that we paid that was paid last year for the lot across the street would be nearly twice as much in annual payments, $4,768 in mortgage payments for a 30-year fixed-term mortgage. In that time, you'd end up paying $80,000 in interest. The lease is $2,500 per year. The purchase in that regard would be $4,700 per year, $4,800 per year. So that's one way of looking at it. And in that regard, the lease, 10 years on if we decide to pave it, that's like I say, we're talking about two different questions, but I know they come together on this. 10 years is a pretty good life cycle for pavement. And so we're going to get our value out of that in that time frame. That's one reason why we're looking for that. This would be if you took the money and invested it. We just purchased CDs a couple days ago. So this is the current rate for the bank CDs, which is the lowest, a low end of interest that you could accrue. If you took $63,000 and invested it in the first year, it would pay $2,646. So the first year would pay for the lease for each year for that first year, and by the 10th year, you would be about 50% over the what you're paying on the annual lease payment. So whether you look at it, comparing it to an investment or comparing it to borrowing the money, the deal we got in this contract, and I'll tip of the hat to Tom and in Sue's office in particular, the deal we got in that lease agreement, I think, is well below market rate. So in short, we got 10 years. We also folded into the agreement the design for a parking lot so that we wouldn't have to go back and spend another 3 months negotiating a parking lot design. So we included that as an appendix to the agreement. So with that, there's a lot there in the agreement, but most of it is pretty basic boots and suspenders that you get with a railroad. So, Sue, anything else you want to point out?
No, I think you more than covered it, and your analysis was more than I did on the lease payments. So, the biggest thing was the eliminating that 30-day notice provision was huge. That they could come in for any reason and terminate it with a 30-day notice. So it's ours for 5 years with that option to renew it for another 5 years. So I don't see them going any other route in 5 years. And so obviously we don't have a crystal ball.
It's at our discretion too in 5 years.
Yeah. So, no, Bob's analysis is spot on, and it was, the railroad is a big organization. They were difficult to work with, but at the end of the day, we negotiated the best terms possible. So I would recommend this as is.
Questions or discussion?
Just to make sure I understand this correctly, you did or you're going to buy that CD, which what you explained, the interest that you're going to get on the CD is going to be more than the $2,500. That's what I want to
No.
make sure I understand.
We bought a CD, but it's unrelated to this. We renewed a CD from the ambulance fund
Okay.
that we just had for an 8-month CD, and now we just purchased another one. But that just tells that's the rate that we got on the CD. It was 4.2%. So that's not a imaginary rate. It's what Fidelity is actually paying on their CDs today. And so I just put that up there for comparison. If we took, if you purchase something with cash, then you're not able to do something else with that cash. And so you say, what else could you do with the cash? Well, if you bought a CD with it, you would make enough in the first year alone to pay that year's lease, and then it would grow over the course of the 10 years. So it's a model to look at the value of money over time.
Okay.
I think my take on it is this is kind of a no-brainer. There's other businesses that are back further in that depend on this for access, like Jaeger Trucking, all those people. I mean, all of a sudden, if we don't renew this lease, who's to say that the railroad doesn't put up barricades? I mean, in all reality, I mean, this isn't just about a parking lot. This is about other businesses that use this for access. So, I mean, to me, this vote's, I recommend approving it as well.
So moved, Mayor.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Roby,
Nay.
Taylor,
Nay.
Bergmeyer,
Aye.
Degenhardt,
Aye.
Fleur, Meyer.
Aye.
We have a tie. Mayor Digman,
I vote to approve it.
motion moves.
(25-0809). Discussion and possible action to approve a resolution authorizing initiation of bidding for the parking lot at First Street and Wall Street in the city of East Dubuque.
So this does move on to the next issue here. And I think, as Mike pointed out, this project has two goals in mind. One is that we do have a responsibility to attempt to handle the stormwater in the best way we can. There is no way to cut a swale and gravel that lasts. There is no, the sewer and everything in that lot is too close to the surface to be able to take the gravel down meaningfully and keep it down without affecting our assets underneath there, which is another factor in this, that we have our own utility lines running underneath that gravel. Additionally, we've got so in order to be able to drain the areas further up, which were in the photograph, in order to drain this, the recommendation from Origin is that we have a swale that's cut from, we use concrete to basically cut a little bit of a swale out and then asphalt for the parking area around it. So this would pave the entire parking area and have serve to both drain that area and also to provide about 50 parking spots going back all the way through invisible fence in the back. So it's property we have. People can park back there now, but the efficiency of it as a parking lot is significantly less than it would be if it was paved. And I think we're growing the downtown here. We've got large investments that have been made in our downtown, and both for those companies and for the ones that we want to continue to draw in, and the ones that have been here for a long time, they will all benefit from the city having a free parking lot in that spot. And so the amount, so this is the layout of the lot. It goes in, this is where it goes. So this would be Colby's other side. His uncle's the invisible fence, and it would stop before it got to the trucking company. And this is how it would lay out. This is the swale in concrete, and the remainder would be paved. The pavement would basically would be depreciated over the course of the 10 years. So even if it didn't go beyond that, we would get the value out of it. And this is the far end of the paved lot. So this is the cost. About $44,500 of it is directly related to addressing the flooding of the basements and the garages back there, and the remainder is giving us the parking lot. So that would be my recommendation. I think it would be an asset to our business district, and I think it would show the kind of investment that we need to make to match the investments that other people are making in our community.
I think the one thing to take into mind here is liability. I mean, you have potholes, and the way that lot is in shape right now, and we're the one that are held liable for anything that happens on that lot. Somebody trips in a pothole, it's on us. You know, with a paved lot, blacktop lot, whatever, it's easier for us to maintain, to salt, to do everything with.
Yeah, and on the liability, if there's no, theoretically, people can park back here, but this water has no place to go. And while that water is back there, I don't think you have a viable, we aren't using the space that we're leasing. And I think we need to try to get the value out of this space. People aren't going to walk through 3 inches of water to get to any of the businesses in our downtown. And if they try, and it happens to be wintertime, they're going to walk across an ice rink, which the mayor's pointed out.
I have 3 questions. I think I know the answer to the first one. Being we're leasing the property, the railroad will not help in this expense, correct?
Correct.
Do we use TIF funds for this? Second question.
We can.
So then, what's it really cost the city then if we use TIF funds?
Just whatever else you might do with the TIF, but we do have the TIF funds available to be able to do it without harming any of the other projects we're working on currently.
Okay. And then my last question is it unfair for us as a city to ask for some assistance or help from the people or businesses that are there on this? Being the city doesn't own the property, we're leasing the property. Is that an unfair question to ask those business owners to participate in some of that $44,000 bill? Just a question is all.
I don't know if it's unfair. We haven't done it. We have, the budget has us finishing the fiscal year and with an estimated about $1.1 million in TIF cash on hand. And so we do have the funds to be able to accomplish it.
That was just my 3 questions.
Any other questions or discussion?
I see in the drawings you don't have anything on the dumpsters. Where will they locate their dumpsters? Because they'll go through the blacktop pretty quickly when it's hot.
I believe, Tony, can you help me on this, that dumpster? Well, they wouldn't be allowed to have dumpsters in the parking lot. So that would be
But is that going
up to them to have space.
What I'm saying is when it's hot, are those dumpsters going to break up the
Yeah, I'm
blacktop?
saying they wouldn't be allowed to have dumpsters on the blacktop.
Wouldn't- So where would they go with their dumpsters in?
It's their responsibility to, we aren't leasing space for them to put dumpsters. But this ends on the other side of invisible fence. And I think at least one of the dumpsters is past that. And I think
One right there.
Colby's is,
There's 4 or 5 of them back there.
Well, I mean.
yeah. So it ends before the red, so yeah, building, but they actually have, I believe, a pad outside that garage, if I'm not mistaken. That's concrete.
So the 44,500 is not the full cost of the project, right? The full cost of the project.
Is the
This is
193.
just probable, so it's not anything, it's 193,300.
Correct.
Okay.
Can we, again, and I might have missed this, I'm sorry, can we just fix the water problem and table the rest of the $153,000? Or if we do it, we have to do it all in one?
If you try to fix the water problem in gravel, you're gonna, as soon as you plow, as soon as you do anything else, it's gonna, and it's either going to disappear, or if it's effective, it's gonna rut, and then you're gonna have a rut through the middle of the parking lot in the gravel. So, yeah, whichever way it goes, and it probably would go both ways. Sometimes it would be rutted, and other times it would be it would disappear, as it has in the past. I think we've tried to taper the gravel in the past.
So maintenance-wise, do we have any figures on, is this going to cost us overtime on weekends and stuff? If it's icy, say the snow melts and then it refreezes, are the guys going to have to come in on overtime to salt that lot even though it's not snowing?
It's actually a great point, because when you plow gravel, you can't plow down to the gravel, or you just shove the gravel aside. So what you end up with is a snowpack on top of the gravel, and you can't clean that gravel, so it ices, and then you have a problem that takes more maintenance, and also brings liability for people walking across it. If we're going to have more people there throughout the year, that's going to be a problem. Whereas if you have asphalt, you can put it down to the asphalt, and you have better action with the sun clearing it. You salt it, and it clears. So, and the water has someplace to go. It doesn't pool and freeze. So that is a great point, but it's a point that it probably, if it's anything, it would be less maintenance than we have now.
Any other questions or discussion?
So we're just voting for a bid right now to approve bidding?
Go to bid, yep.
What would the plan be if this, for some reason, this doesn't go through? What's the plan for that property? I almost feel like these should have been reversed. Like approve, because we're leasing property that's kind of junk right now,
Yeah.
with the hopes to improve it. But what if we don't? Then what do we do?
If we don't, we still have to, we would still have to lease the property, because it's the only access. There's no access at the other end for the city. So there's only one end you can come in. And so anybody using that for anything,
Since
I mean,
it's their property, I completely understand the flooding and definitely, but since it's their property, we can't can't go to them, or the business owners can't go to them and say, hey, your property is running off into ours, flooding us? Yeah, the railroad owners.
The railroad, you can go after a railroad.
I'm asking, I don't know the answer.
I know. There is nobody except maybe government that has more protection from everything than a railroad. So I'm not a lawyer, but
No, that answers it.
yeah,
Okay.
it's hard.
I just where I'm coming from, I just kind of see it.
Yeah.
You know, we're doing all this improving, not our property. Someone needs to, and I just thought maybe the landowner, but if that's not an option, then
And that's why we work so hard on getting making it a lease that is as close to ownership as we could get, and this is as close to ownership as we can get. It'll work the same as ownership unless we would default on our payments, basically,
You're
or
making it, getting rid of the problem and making it better for everybody else.
I think so, and I think it'll have impacts on up and down Sinsinawa. It's not just something for one area of the street because there's a ripple effect up and down the street with the parking that we have. And we have heard a lot of concerns about having adequate parking with the new businesses coming in. And I've always reminded people that it's a good problem to have if you have to bring in more parking. If you don't have enough parking, what it means is that your city's alive and your city is growing and your city is open to people coming and bringing their business. And but the concern is real that parking can fill up. And when you bring a few hundred people to a wedding or whatever, that is going to have impacts on other businesses up and down the street. But it's a good problem to have, but it is still a problem that we have to deal with.
And I'm saying, if this is a problem, I know we need to fix this. I don't think there's any hesitation there. Nobody wants to spend $193,000, but if we have to do it, I've motioned that we get it done. For the business owners as well as the city of East Dubuque. I mean, this is ridiculous.
And again, this is just to initiate the
Right.
bidding process.
Right,
So
yes, that's
the
what I'm
bids will
saying.
come back to us at the next meeting or whatever, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And hopefully
this is-
it's like 20,000.
You make that motion?
I'd make that motion to go ahead and get the,
It is a formal bid process, so there'll be
Yeah.
a bid opening and all that.
we have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Taylor,
yay.
Bergmeyer,
aye.
Dagenhart,
Aye.
Fleur. Meyer,
Aye.
Roby.
Nay.
Motion carries. (25-0810) discussion and possible action to approve an amendment to ordinance for registration of vacant buildings.
So we're not moving very far away. So we have been looking at we've been improving our ordinances on vacant buildings and nuisance buildings and things, and I think we made progress, but we have in code a license that someone can have for a vacant building, and it's a way to manage the vacant buildings and to make sure that they aren't a permanent problem like we have in several locations down Sinsinawa. What we saw was that we didn't really have a workable system for licensure, and we didn't have a financial reason for someone to move on and either take down the building or put it to good use. And so what this one does is has a 90-day license. So if your building is vacant, you can pay $500, secure the building, give us information as far as who owns it, how to get into it, those kinds of things. You have a plan for securing it and a plan for taking care of it. You can get a subsequent 90 days for $1,000, and you can do that for up to a year. So and at the end of the year, then you're subject to the city ordinances that are in place for your vacant building, which are more significant. And so the idea is, yes, if you're buying a building and you have a plan and you're going ahead with it, you're either selling the building, taking it down, or fixing it up, we want you to have surety to know that you have time to be able to get your plan in place and get it done. But it's not a permanent thing. You don't just buy a building and watch it fall apart, which we've got a couple buildings in town that we've had that problem with. So as soon as, if the council sees fit to pass this, as soon as we get this, we will be pursuing those buildings and their owners and ensuring that they either license, sell, or come up with a plan to take their building down. So I get things.
Yeah, and you might be wondering how we kind of came up with these timeframes and fines, and we did a comprehensive evaluation of other similar communities and their ordinances, and that's we kind of looked at some of their timeframes and fine ranges to get some ideas, and so these are kind of an average of similarly situated communities.
These have to be paid in advance, so we don't. It kind of pushes the issue of payment because some people get fined and they just don't do anything and they don't pay the fine. So with this, it's up to them to come in with a plan at the beginning. So.
Questions or discussion? If not, a motion to approve?
A motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Bergmeyer.
Aye.
Dagenhart.
Aye.
Fleur. Meyer. Roby.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Twenty-five 0811, discussion and possible action to approve IEPA PWSL 17-6364 in the amount of $42,159.39, including Origin Design and CFPS Incorporated invoice number 1 in the city of East Dubuque.
So both this one and the next one are seeking funds for payments that have already been made by us for these projects. So we're recouping from the state the money that we've put out, which is a good thing.
I'll make a motion.
Roll call?
Dagenhart.
Aye.
Fleur. Meyer. Roby.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Bergmeyer.
Aye.
25-0812, discussion and possible action to approve IEPA PWSL 17-7079 in the amount of $34,144.37, including Origin Design and CFPS Incorporated invoice number 1 in the city of East Dubuque.
Again, recouping funds for funds that we've already put out the door.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Roll call?
Fleur. Aye. Meyer. Aye. Roby.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Bergmeyer.
Aye.
Dagenhart.
Aye.
25-0813, executive session in regards to the sale of real estate and litigation.
Make the motion to go in executive session.
Second.
Roll call?
Meyer. Aye. Roby.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Bergmeyer.
Aye.
Dagenhart.
Aye.
Fleur.
Dial him back.
Yeah, I should be able to transfer them in.
There again.
Hold on, Tim, I'm gonna transfer you in just a second.
Want me to put it over here?
I was gonna put it back here.
25-0814, discussion and possible action on matters discussed in executive session in the city of East Dubuque. We need a motion to direct the city attorney to take actions discussed in executive session.
Still moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Taylor?
Aye.
Bergmeyer?
Aye.
Dagenhart? Fleur? Meyer?
Aye.
Roby?
Aye.
25-0815, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call.
Bergmeyer?
Aye.
Dagenhart? Fleur? Meyer?
Aye.
Roby?
Aye.
Taylor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Oops, sorry. Okay, Tim, yep.